ECU?
Do you bleed purple and gold?
Are you ready to hoist the colors?
Hoist the colors!
It's time for the most in-depth look into the world of ECU athletics. Welcome to Hoist the Colors with your host, Stephen Igo on 94.3 The Game.
Watch the show live on Facebook
And at 943thegame.com. Here's Stephen Igo.
All right, welcome in. Hoist the Colors on a Thursday. It's June 26th. It is our penultimate episode of the season, if we want to call it that. We've been going strong from early August through now with really no breaks. And so we're going to wrap up our coverage this week. We'll do today's show. We'll have Bobby Harvard on Friday, and then we'll take July off from programming. Obviously, we'll still be ongoing on the Hoist the Colors website. And we'll have random podcasts here or there on the Hoist the Colors podcast channels, most likely. So stay tuned for that. But looking forward to some much-needed rest and recovery. But before we do that, on Thursday's show, we are going to finish up our in-depth opponent previews. We've done 10 of 12 to this point for ECU's football upcoming season. We have 2 left, the final 2 games of the year, both of them being on the road, UTSA on November 22nd, and then Florida Atlantic on November 29th. We'll preview both of those teams. We'll reach out to somebody from FAU around 12:30, and in about 15 minutes or so, Philip Pilkington and I are going to have to do a UTSA preview of our own. Now, shout out to Jared Kalmus, who shot us some notes. Otherwise, we would very much be just talking out of our rears, but we would at least have a little bit of insight here thanks to Jared, so appreciate him. He couldn't join us over the phone, but he did send us some notes. Philip Pilkington, have you been studying up on the Roadrunners?
Yeah, a little bit. Looked over Jared's notes, looked at some other things, but also, this was not confirmed. You and I were going to have to do this till this morning, and I've had other stuff going on, of course. So we're going to wing it. I'm just going to be honest. Maybe Igo's not going to wing it, but Pilk's going to wing it.
Our plan is to wing it, but do such a good job of winging it that you don't know that we're winging it and that we actually know what we're talking about. Although we're kind of giving it away. But Jared sent over some awesome notes. And to be honest, it's not like we're going super in-depth here. It is June. We're not breaking down the depth charts of all these teams. We just kind of want to know the storylines, the expectations, the quarterback situation. How's the defense looking? Are you going to be able to stop anybody? So we'll get into all of that with UTSA. But and then at the end of the show, Philip, we're going to have an interesting talking point. What opponent has our opinions changed on, both good and badly, as a result of these opponent previews? Maybe none, maybe a lot. We'll find out towards the end of the show. But I do want to start today by talking some former Pirates before we get into UTSA. We haven't really had a chance, Philip, to dive into what Alec Burleson is doing for the St. Louis Cardinals. I feel like, it's happening on a daily basis because he's red hot right now. But he kind of went from obviously a starter to begin the year to being a backup guy / platoon guy, and now he is back to getting full-time ABs. We know Joseph Sampson, who joins us a lot of Mondays, hates the St. Louis Cardinals, but right now the Cardinals have surged up the standings. They have been playing great baseball. They're 44-37. A large part of that has been Alec Burleson. He is hitting now in the season .298. He's up to 9 home runs, 33 RBI. Over the last 30 games, he's hitting .313 with 5 home runs and 17 RBI. He has an OPS over 800 during that time span. He's moved up to like 3rd or 4th in the order. He's hitting against the righties and lefties. And it's amazing, Philip, what happens when you give a guy who sprays line drives consistent ABs.
Yeah, it is. And, he's taking advantage of this. This is a guy who last year I got to see him play a couple times down in Atlanta. And you could tell by the way, even from being there watching him take BP, man, this guy is a pure hitter. And what I mean by that is he can put the ball in all sorts of situations over the field. Yes, you mentioned he can hit the long ball, but he can also hit for average as well. And look, he deserves at bats. Obviously part of the reason last year he couldn't be quite an everyday starter is he was rotating through a very deep outfield. Obviously Paul Goldschmidt was the first baseman a year ago, and he started, I would guess, north of 150 games. Don't have the numbers in front of me. Obviously Goldie's gone to the Yankees now. And the reason why it wasn't a guarantee, though, that Burleson was going to be an everyday starter at first was because of Contreras. Obviously, he's getting older. The knees are starting to go, so they've moved him over to a temporary role at first base. But the combination of his ability to hit the baseball, the fact that we do have the universal DH now, which we forget wasn't that long ago that pitchers were still batting in the National League, it's creating more and more opportunities for a guy like Alec Burleson to play on what is a deeper team than Joseph Sampson will admit that they are. And he surprisingly hates the Cardinals more than Patrick Johnson, and Patrick Johnson is a Cubs fan.
Well, it is. I feel like whenever Joe hates on the Cardinals most is when the Cardinals end up being pretty good. Like he was just trashing them in the preseason, and here we are. That division, the Brewers are playing well lately too, and so you've got Cubs, Brewers, Cardinals in the mix there in the NL Central. Checking around some other former Pirates. It's been kind of a disappointing year for Jeff Hoffman, who took over as the Blue Jays closer. Now, he is still pitching a lot. He's actually 6-2, but he's also blown a handful of saves. Right now, he's got a negative WAR, which can change based on one or two bad outings as a reliever. You get such small sample sizes. You know, he struck out 45 to 10 walks and 33 in the third inning, so it's not like he's pitching bad. He's filling up the zone, but he's just had some rough outings. The other guys, former Pirates, checking in. Gavin Williams, I would say, has been up and down this season. At times, he's looked really good. At other times, he's been prone to the walks and the home run. He doesn't give up a lot of hits, and he doesn't really – he's striking out about a guy per inning, but I think consistency right now is hurting Gavin. For the season, he's a solid 5-3 with a 3.68 ERA, but 45 walks in 80 innings is a lot, and so that's something that the Guardians want to see them continue to cut down. Sean Armstrong having a good season with the Rangers, and so those are kind of your updates there. We'll look at Connor Norby in a minute, but the pitching front, I feel like it's been kind of a mixed bag, which we expected. I think we were hoping for the breakout year from Gavin Phillip, but thus far, that's kind of what we're seeing.
It is, and the good thing is, like you said, he hasn't let up a lot of hits. He's been getting a lot of weak contact. Not that you want to see the strikeout numbers go down, but you wonder if maybe he didn't try and strike as many guys out. Would he walk less? And that's easier said than done for us to sit here and just say behind a microphone. And I'm not saying that he needs to go change his approach, but you do wonder these things. But it's a really tough thing to evaluate midway through the season. But kind of the I think pleasant surprise has been why am I blanking on his name right now? The guy in Texas.
Armstrong.
Yeah, Sean Armstrong, because we came on this show at the beginning of the season. We're worried, would Sean Armstrong even stay at the Major League Ball Club? And it wasn't really a knock on Sean. It was just the fact that he is getting older, and this is a pretty deep bullpen that they have there in Texas. Unfortunately, it's not been as deep, or at least for Rangers fans, as we thought it was going to be, and Armstrong's been one of the few bright spots in what has been a team that you're still scratching your head and wondering how they were winning a World Series just 2 years ago.
Armstrong 2-2 on the season, 3.27 ERA. He struck out 36 against 14 walks. Also has a couple of saves for Texas. Connor Norby with Clayton McCullough in Miami. Again, it's been a bit of an up and down year. You expect that first full year really as a starter in Major League Baseball. He's hitting .250 right now, 4 home runs, a triple, 10 doubles, and logging an OPS of .661. I still think we're going to see a Connor Norby heater sooner rather than later, but he's kind of learning on the fly there in Miami. Checking across the league, Philip, I would say, honestly, probably the biggest surprise outside of the Tigers continuing to run the AL Central. They've been extremely consistent from day one. And obviously the Cubs on the NL Central have been a nice story. The recent surge of the Tampa Bay Rays, I know that they're a team that really don't have many expectations. We always know they can pitch and play defense. But I thought this year they started kind of slow. They don't even have a stadium. I'm like, is this the year the Rays just go back to being just poor? And right now they're a game behind the Yankees. So I don't know, anything else standing out to you in terms of Major League Baseball?
No, I mean, that's kind of it, right? I mean, Kevin Cobb, what a job he's done. We've talked about it as baseball fans for years, but like you said, you thought this would be kind of the year that they come back down to reality. The biggest surprise going in the other direction, sorry if you're listening, Bobby Harward, but it's been the abysmal Baltimore Orioles. that were supposed to be in what was supposed to be a 3-4, maybe even 5-way race in the American League East. And right now, I mean, these guys they can't pitch, they can't hit. Adley Rutschman looks like, a guy who's going to have a 6 to 7 year MLB career, not a guy who's going to have a 20-year MLB career. And I mean, it's just been bad to watch over there in Baltimore. The whole thing was this new ownership group was supposed to come in and spend money. Well, guess what? You didn't spend any money in the offseason. You let Corbin walk, and you just didn't go out and get anybody. So, yes, you've got some young talent, but you're not coupling this young talent with any sort of veteran leadership or veteran ability right now. Jackson Holliday's having a bounce-back season. He's not been phenomenal. He's been a hell of a lot better than he was a year ago. And, but you're relying on him, Rutschman, and Gunner, really, to be the bulk of your team, and that's not where you can be right now if you're Baltimore. So I think they've kind of been the big surprise to me as far as the negative goes. And then I thought the Rockies were going to be crappy. I didn't think they were going to be on the path for the worst record ever crappy.
Yeah, Zach Agnos got sent back down, about a week and a half ago, maybe a little over 2 weeks now. It all runs together. But really, he had like 3 or 4 bad outings in a row, I believe, after the passing of his grandfather. Yeah, 4. And so, look, he'll be back. I have no doubt about that. I thought it was kind of a quick hook there from the Rockies, but I expect Zach to be back sooner than later. It wouldn't have been a quick hook
if he was anywhere else, but you're the Rockies. I mean, oh, my goodness.
I know.
Of course, the one thing I will say, they've got a few guys who can close games. They just don't get many close opportunities.
So still a great experience for Zach getting up, having success. He'll be back. I have no doubt about that. So there's your MLB check-in. Again, we're still a month away from the trade deadline when things will really start to crystallize. It's such a long season. NBA draft was last night. We're going to wait to see if R.J. Felton lands in any camps or anything following the draft. Round 2 slated for today, but round 1 was completed last night. No surprise. Cooper Flagg goes number 1 overall from Duke to the Dallas Mavericks. Dylan Harper from Rutgers goes number 2 to the San Antonio Spurs. VJ Edgecombe, 3 from Baylor to the 76ers. Con Knipple from Duke to the Hornets. How do you feel about that fit as a Duke guy? And look, I think we all want to see the Hornets do well. Can they hit on this one?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. The thing that I think that Charlotte most needs is a front court player. The tough thing is I don't know if a front court player was anywhere near best available in this draft at number 4. As much as I don't like Kendrick Perkins a lot, he was bringing up good points where he said wings are going to be the most important position in this draft. So I think they got the best wing available at the time. They paired him with the kid from UConn that they took with the 29th pick. What was his name? It is Liam McKinley.
Liam McNeely.
Yeah, and he was really good. He can rebound as well from his wing position. He's a guy who flies in there and really is a tough blue-collar player. So I think to be successful in today's NBA, you have to have really good wings that can shoot the ball, wings that are athletic. And I think Con Knipple, when he struggled a year ago, it was really inside when he wasn't allowed freedom of movement. And, in college games, you can tackle people. In the NBA game, if you look at somebody, it's a flagrant foul. So I think the NBA game will suit Con well. It's going to be interesting to see how it pans out. But, if they can stay healthy, maybe this is a way to move on finally from Miles Bridges. And, if Melo can have some good wings to play off, maybe they can, beat a 30 to 35 win team and at least not be abysmal next year.
3 Duke players go inside the top 10. Malawach, 10th overall to the Phoenix Suns, who also traded for Mark Williams from the Hornets. So they got a couple big guys. We'll see how that transpires going forward. What do you think about Malawach to Phoenix, which, as we were talking pre-show, all of a sudden a very young team?
It is. They got 2 young guards in that trade for Kevin Durant earlier in the week. So I think this is a good fit. This is a team who has taken a lot of massive steps back since winning the Western Conference back in 2021. Obviously lost that finals in 6 to the Milwaukee Bucks. But this is a team who needs that front court presence. Now, look, Malawach is not the stretch 5 that plays in today's NBA. That is the tough thing. He is more of a traditional center. However, if you do leave him just wide open at the top of the key, he can make a shot. So, I think this is just one of those opportunities for him to grow, evolve slowly. He's a young man. He's only 19 years old, and this is a young team. Even their older guys are still in their upper 20s. I think the window will reopen for them in 2 to 3 years, which is a perfect timeline for Kumon Malawach to be reaching his pinnacle in the NBA when a lot of the core group will be in their early 30s, which it seems like, with the exception of this past year's finals, is kind of a time where guys peak out. And really their window opens because that's when your basketball IQ is where you need it to be, as well as your skill set has developed.
All right, final thing here before we get a break in. I just looked up RJ Felton's name on Twitter just to see if there's any buzz, and there's some tweets advocating for teams to take him in the second round. Do I think that's going to happen? Probably not, but he worked out for around, I want to say, 15 to 20 NBA teams, private workouts. So I think going to the pits up in Portsmouth really got him on some radars. I think he'll get a shot somewhere in camp. I just don't know. I don't know how good of a shot. I guess a lot of it will depend on fit and then obviously how he does. But I expect him to be playing somewhere, Philip, this summer. It's just a matter of what is the true opportunity he gets.
One of the great things is we are only 14 days away from the NBA Summer League starting. It starts on July 10th in Vegas. All 30 teams are going to be there, and they're going to need rosters. Now, yes, they are going to be bringing a lot of their G League guys from the previous season, but teams like to say, well, if you didn't make it off our G League roster in the past couple of years, let's move on to younger guys. It seems like now there's more and more of an opportunity to get an NBA look in a camp than there ever has been. You hear about guys every year. You tune into the summer leagues and you hear about these guys from schools that you don't think about as basketball schools, players you've never heard of, and here they are playing on a summer league roster. Do they play well? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. But I do think he has that opportunity. If I had to predict, he will be on a roster 14 days from now and will be traveling to Las Vegas to play in a summer league game.
All right, there's your NBA talk. And again, I know we're doing a ECU specific show. NBA probably not the top of our wish list for our listeners, but I think if we saw RJ Felton land somewhere, there'd be a lot more interest. Just like when we have guys in Major League Baseball playing that are former Pirates. So we'll keep you up to date with where RJ is tracking in the coming days. All right, we'll get a break in. When we come back, we'll switch gears. Football opponent previews continue. Philip and I will attempt our UTSA preview outlook for 2025 after this.
The team of Flatlands Jessup is working overtime to help ensure that Eastern North Carolinians like you get the health insurance help you need this open enrollment period. New legislation passed meaning more people than ever qualify for affordable coverage. Let us help you today.
Big tax credits are back. Get a 30% tax credit, up to $2,000 off your new Mitsubishi electric heat pump install. Let Comfort Master help you take advantage of the tax credits with a qualifying Mitsubishi electric ducted heat pump or non-ducted Mitsubishi electric mini splits. Mitsubishi electric mini splits are ideal for bonus rooms, garages, or sunrooms. If you need a new HVAC unit, call Comfort Master today.
Call Comfort Master. Call Comfort Master.
At Parker's Barbecue, our family has been serving your family for 3 generations.
For that, we say thank you.
Blessing families every Thursday. Kids eat free all day. That's the Parker's way.
Legendary food served from our 3 locations. Always quick, always delicious. That's the Parker's way.
At Parker's, our mission is to impact our customers through Christ-like service in a way that feeds them both physically and spiritually. That is the Parker's way.
You know what the problem is with standard belts? Usually you have to choose between too tight or the opposite, too loose. But with Anson Belt and Buckle, you don't have to choose. We got rid of the holes and instead have a track system designed for micro-adjustability. That way you can enjoy a perfect fit every time. Anson Belt and Buckle. Find your perfect fit today.
Healthwise Pharmacy rounds the bases with all of your infusion, retail, compounding, and medical equipment needs. Locally owned and operated by pharmacist Marcy Parker, Healthwise has grown to be your most trusted provider for infusion services. Currently providing in-home or on-site infusions in North Carolina, South Carolina, and Virginia. Visit Healthwise Pharmacy at 615B South Memorial Drive or call 252-295-0059 to speak to a patient service representative to find the option that best suits your needs.
Tired of the 1-800 numbers advertising Medicare products? Flatlands Jessup has 6 offices all throughout eastern North Carolina. Get face-to-face help from our local award-winning licensed team. Stop by today. Flatlands Jessup, your whole world covered.
It's back.
Inner Banks Media presents the #1 outdoor concert series in Greenville.
Concert on the Common.
The next band to hit the stage at the Greenville Toyota Amphitheater is On the Border, the ultimate Eagles tribute.
Get more details on this year's concert series at concertonthecommon.org. See you June 26th for On the Border.
Climb aboard as we set sail and hoist the colors.
matey!
Back to the show with Stephen Igo on 94.3 The Game.
All right, welcome back in. Hoist the Colors on a Thursday. It's June 26th. We're live on YouTube, Facebook, and X. If you got a question, drop it in the chat. We'll get to it. We got our last 2 football opponent previews here. On our next segment, we'll be joined by Robbie LaStella to talk FAU, the season finale. But right now, we're going to dive into the Roadrunners. UTSA coming off a 7-6 season. They won the Myrtle Beach Bowl in dominant fashion over Coastal Carolina. After a 6-6 regular season, they do return some key pieces, specifically on the offensive side of the ball. Philip Pilkington with us here. And again, we're doing this. Shout out to our buddy Jared Kalmus, who sent over some notes. And before we dive into some specifics here, Philip, I think more than anything, UTSA will be considered one of the better teams on paper going into the season. Jeff Traylor, you kind of know you've got a great coach there. Since taking over UTSA in 2020, he's gone 7-5, 12-2, 11-3, back-to-back Conference USA titles. They made the move to the American. 9-4 in 2023, 7-1 in the league that year. And then last year, a little bit of a dip. 7-6, as I mentioned, 4-4 in the American. Now, they went 6-0 at home and 0-6 on the road during the regular season. So the last 2 years, this is their home and away record. They are 11-1 at home. The last loss being to Army on September 15th, 2023. That was a non-conference game at the time. And they're 3-9 on the road over that time. So ECU gets them in the Alamo Dome. That's not a good thing based on that number, those numbers right there. Just general thoughts on UTSA before we dive into some of these specifics here.
You know, one of the things that Jeff Traylor has really thrived with, I should say, is consistency. And consistency on the offensive side of the ball. And as talented as I think the Owen McCown is, that was his first year as a starter. You know, he played in the bowl game due to the injury to Frank Harris the previous year. He actually looked pretty good in that bowl game 2 years ago, but I think there were some growing pains. We saw it early in the season when they came to Dowdy. This is a team that was still trying to get a lot of things figured out. I think they do have a lot of continuity on offense from the 24 season into the 25 season. I think this team will be right back where they belong. Now, there is some turnover on defense, but I think defense is one of those things where it takes a little less time to get that going. They are also one of the teams that are fortunate enough, much like East Carolina, to play all 4 out-of-conference games the first 4 games of the season. They will be more than ready for conference play, I think, come week 5. So I expect him to be back. Traylor's pretty good with quarterbacks. Obviously, Owen McCown, high football IQ guy, you know, the son of Josh McCown. But you always talk about that jump from year 1 to year 2. He made a huge jump from his junior year to his senior year in college, or in high school, excuse me. This was a guy, and like most of the quarterbacks we see these days, they were 3- and 4-year starters in high school. He was not. He was a guy who backed up a man by the name of Drake May. Maybe you've heard of him. So that's why he didn't start his freshman and sophomore year. And he made a huge – then he transfers to Texas, makes that massive jump from his junior to his senior year. I expect that same type of jump from Owen McCown this year.
McCown last year finished the season 63% completion percentage, 3,400 yards, 25 touchdowns, 10 picks. And again, Philip and I will get more into it later, but really McCown and Caton Hauser are two of the most proven quarterbacks coming back in this conference at their respective spots. So I think that gives both ECU and UTSA a leg up offensively. Looking over at some of the notes for Jared that he sent over, UTSA returns the second most offensive production in the season, kind of the general in the country from last season. So they should be really good on offense. A lot of that obviously based on what McCown did. Now they did lose a running back to the portal. Also worth noting, he started with his biggest loss, toughest to replace, is kicker. Philip, they lost their kicker at the end of spring, and their backup kicker also transferred. So if a game comes down to a kick, the Pirates may be in pretty good shape.
They are, but you got to remember they're kicking in a dome. They're one of two teams in FBS football that have a dome as their home stadium. So if anybody's going to lose a kicker, it needs to be the Roadrunners.
That is fair. They did lose their 5-year starter at inside linebacker, Jamal Lagone, I'm going to go with. I don't know the official pronunciation there. That's a lot to replace. Jamori Robinson, he was an absolute terror. They've lost major edge rushers the last 2 years. Trey Moore to Texas, and then Jamori Robinson also transferred at the conclusion of last season. So those are not easy spots to replace. In the portal, they did add a USC running back transfer, Marion Peterson, who's expected to come in and play a big role. Shad Banks transfers in from TCU. He's expected to play linebacker. And then Houston Christian receiver A.J. Wilson expected to play a lot at receiver. Those are their significant portal additions. But overall, this kind of looks like your typical American team in this area. Like a lot of good things on offense to think about and to hope for. They should be pretty explosive offensively. But defensively, they're almost replacing all their corners, all their linebackers. They lost their best edge rusher. This seems like they may, again, struggle on defense if they don't get some quick replacements.
I think they will. I don't think they're going to struggle as much as teams maybe like FAU, who we're about to hear about, or North Texas, where it's all offense and no defense, right? But I think it's going to take some time. They do have some good additions. You think about Shad Banks coming over from TCU. I think he's going to slot well into that signal caller role at middle linebacker. This is a guy who's done that kind of role before at a Power 4 program. So I think there is an opportunity for this team to be good. But like I said, it's all going to come down to continuity. How quickly does it happen? Again, first 4 games for them are out-of-conference football games. So the regular season, quote-unquote, doesn't begin for them till week 5. They're going to have a lot of time to play tough games. They have 2 pretty tough road games in there as well. So they're going to have to learn to do this signal calling in loud environments. They go to College Station the first week. The Aggie fans are not going to go easy. I mean, most college football fans believe that Texas A&M is a cult, and they're going to live up to that week 1 when they see the Roadrunners. So, they're going to be trial by fire those first few weeks, and then they're going to have that opportunity by conference play, and definitely by the time they see the Pirates in late November, to have a lot of those things ironed out on the defensive side of the football.
All right, Vegas has their win total at 7.5, and Johnny in our chat makes a good point. He says the Texas State game will be interesting. The Bobcats dominated UTSA last season. Yeah, UTSA lost at Texas State last year 49-10, and I remember we picked that game, and it was a 1-point spread, and we were all dead wrong on that.
Yeah, buddy, we were.
This year, though, it's in the Alamo Dome. Their non-conference schedule at Texas A&M week 1, Texas State at home week 2, Incarnate Word week 3, and then at Colorado State. Sneaky tough game there to wrap up non-conference. I do like how their conference schedule sets up. They go to Temple after an off week. They host Rice, and they go to North Texas. Then they get another off week. They get Tulane at home. They do have to go to South Florida on a Thursday night, which could be a big game. They go to Charlotte, which is a long trip for them. And then they get ECU and Army at home to close the season. But I feel like 7.5, I like that win total. I don't think they'll go winless on the road again, Philip. I think they're going to be right there in that 7-8 win mark and, maybe a little above if they get strong defensive play. Your thoughts on kind of how the schedule lines up?
Yeah, the interesting thing, they do have to go to South Florida, which is going to be a short week, but they will be coming off a Thursday night game against Tulane. Now, Tulane will also be coming off a bye when they take on UTSA, so That'll be interesting. But as to how this sets up, well, it sets up with 2 wins right off the jump if you're UTSA and Jeff Traylor. Or at least it should be 2 wins, right? And it kind of seems like this conference schedule for them goes in waves, right? Starts out really easy, gets a little tougher. They get that little break in there where they play Charlotte before they finish the season really strong. So, again, they're going to have that trial by fire with those first 4 games. Then they're going to have that opportunity to see what have we learned offensively, especially what have we learned defensively by playing 2 teams that you are much better than on paper and should be better than on the field. Of course, on paper doesn't win you football games. It just gives us, the analysts, stuff to talk about. But at the end of the day, you are very disappointed if you drop either one of those games. They're those first 2 conference games at Temple or home against Rice. At Temple, perfect opportunity to go get your first technically road win in 2 years. Obviously, they did win the bowl game against Coastal Carolina in Myrtle Beach, so you can almost count that as a road game, even though it'll go down as a neutral site in the record book. So, hey, look, there's your opportunity, right? But, of course, you do have an opportunity the week before to beat Colorado State. Colorado State's Fort Collins, not an easy place to play. You got to deal with the altitude. You're at over a mile high there in Fort Collins. And Colorado State, not a massive fan base, but a pretty passionate one. By the way, if you ever need tickets to Colorado State games, I got some hookups. So, look, this is a team this is an opportunity for them to right some of the wrongs from a year ago early in the season. If they don't right those wrongs, it could be a long year because right after those quick, easy, good games, it gets really darn tough. 3 weeks in a row, you're going to be in some dog fights there with North Texas, where you're going to have to score points, Tulane, and then, of course, South Florida.
I'm just going to go on record now. I think that East Carolina game in late November will have conference title ramifications one way or the other. Maybe for both teams. But I think that's going to be a big game in San Antonio, so we'll see you there. All right, let's get a break in. There's your UTSA preview. I feel like that went pretty good.
Yeah,
we could have done.
I rambled a little bit. I've rambled both segments. I'll shut up the next segment. I promise.
That's fine. I don't think you're allowed to talk the next segment either way. So we'll get our guy Robbie LaStella on. He covers FAU for the Owl's Nest. We'll hear from him after this FAU preview on the way.
This is about you, your family, and the health of all who live in Eastern North Carolina. This is about the transformation of a health system into something more powerful and more human. About creating new ways to treat disease and keep you well. This is about ECU Health, which is to say, it's really all about you. ECU Health. Minds, hearts, purpose.
You have a choice when you invest in insurance, and when you choose First State Insurance Advisors, you're working with people you can trust. Clark Stallings has deep ties in the community. His team, including Keaton Smith, Regina Asby, Phil Leva, Max Joyner Jr., Max Joyner III, and Ginger Smith, provides knowledgeable and professional advice. First State Insurance Advisors is an independent insurance agency. They offer all types of personal insurance as well as various types for business. Call or email First State Insurance Advisors today. We want to be your trusted choice agency.
Other restaurants claim their food is fresh and fast, but are they friendly? At Moore's, you're treated like family the minute you walk into their doors. With locations in Winterville, New Bern, Swansboro, Morehead City, and Jacksonville. We've been practicing what we preach since 1945. At Moore's, our barbecue is slow cooked and smoked over real wood daily until it's so tender it's falling off the bone. Combined with our fresh chicken, cooked-to-order seafood, and homemade fixins, we're sure you'll agree. If it's not Moore's, it's less.
Storm season is approaching. North Carolina weather can damage your roof, and before long, a small leak can turn into a big problem. Your home is one of your biggest investments, so protect it with Wells Home Improvements.
We work with all insurance companies for a hassle-free roof installation experience. Call us today and get 10% off your roof installation when you mention this commercial.
252-227-8403 or visit us online at wellshomeimprovements.com. Wells Home Improvements. Local, honest, dependable.
Want fresh, homegrown produce? Then look for Peden's Junior Produce. Peden's Junior Produce, a mobile produce stand, is on Memorial Drive beside Parker's Barbecue in Greenville and open Thursday and Friday 10 to 7, Saturday 8 to 7, and Sunday 11 to 6. Choose from seasonal produce like collards, squash, onions, potatoes, corn, and the list goes on. Support your local farmers and enjoy locally grown produce. To find out what's in season, check out Peden's Junior Produce on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Harvesting happiness one crop at a time.
Stephen Igo on 94.3 The Game.
Hoist the Johnny Roger!
Now, back to Hoist the Colors.
All right, welcome back in. Hoist the Colors. Our final opponent preview of the offseason is here. It'll be FAU hosting East Carolina. That'll be the final game of the regular season scheduled for Saturday, November 29th. We're going to get an in-depth look at the Owls now with Robbie LaStella of the Owls Nest. Robbie, first off, welcome to the show. Secondly, interesting times in Boca, going from Tom Herman to Zach Kittley, an offensive mind. What are the vibes like in Boca around this football team right now?
Well, thank you for me on. I haven't gotten a chance to get up to Greenville yet. That's one of the cities in the AAC I want to get up to eventually for one sport at least. Maybe baseball, maybe football. We'll see. But appreciate you guys having me on, and definitely exciting times. The last couple regimes between Taggart and Herman has definitely put a damper on football for the fans a little bit over the past couple of years. But, you know, with new hires comes definitely the excitement potential. And I think Zach Kittley right now is definitely somebody the fans are rallying around and are excited about. Simply, you know, who knows exactly how the results will turn out, but one thing's for sure, wherever he's been, the offense has been exciting, and I think that's something, even with Herman, even with Taggart, the offense at times was not exciting. And so, you know, we'll see how things work out, as I said, but definitely excited about the prospects of an air raid offense and a lot of points in paradise, for sure.
Yeah, we were talking at the beginning of the show, Robbie, and look, we were talking about ECU. They're expected to be pretty good on offense. Who knows about the defense? We were talking about UTSA a minute ago. They should be good on offense. Who knows about the defense? So we'll start with the offense. And I feel like, I mean, obviously Caden Veltkamp hasn't played at all at FAU, but he comes over with Kittley, familiar ties at Western Kentucky. He was the CompUSA Player of the Year. So, like, we'll see how it meshes in Boca, but like on paper, FAU kind of has maybe one of the better quarterbacks already in the American. So just talk about that transition and what that's been like covering that.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely intriguing to have a quarterback come in with a guy in Kittley who they're familiar with each other. Zach recruited Caden while he was at Western Kentucky, and they've kept in contact while even Zach went after Zach left, and Caden did a year at Western Kentucky, a couple of years actually, but them coming together along with Caden's self-described best friend, slot receiver Easton Messer, I think that definitely gives some stability right away. Even last year in year 2 of the Herman era, we had no idea going in, even late, like week before week 1, we didn't know who the starting quarterback was going to be, whether it was going to be Cam Fancher or Tyreek Starks. Ended up being Fancher. Starks ended up coming in after Cam got hurt. But I think this year having a guy in Caden who is going to be comfortable in the system, have already a go-to guy in Easton. Now, obviously, you don't want him relying on that, but right away having someone you're comfortable with over the spring, into the summer, and then eventually into the fall is huge. And I think that's another reason why the fan base is a little bit optimistic heading into year 1 is because FAU, it's been a while since there's been a quote-unquote star guy. N'Kosi Perry was supposed to be that. Things ended up didn't work out wins and loss-wise, so that kind of got marred a little bit. But Caden right now has a chance to kind of be the face of this new FAU along with Zach Kittley, obviously, and I think that gives a lot of optimism and hope, like I said, especially on the offensive side of the ball headed into the regular season.
We're visiting with Robbie LaStella from the Owl's Nest, covers FAU, all sports. And Robbie, defensively, like, what's kind of the plan on that side of the ball? Tell us about maybe the coordinator, what they're planning to run, and then, like, what are fair expectations defensively, given that you're going to be running a high octane offense, you're probably going to naturally give up some points. What are they hoping for on that side of the ball?
Well, that's one of the first things we asked Zach Kittley right away. I believe it may have been even before he hired Brett Dewhurst, who's the defensive coordinator, is like kind of the stigma when you have that, high octane offense, air raids, throw it around, that your defense is going to kind of slack off. Kittley doesn't want it to be that way. He said right away, and this is just him saying that, so you never know, but he'd rather win a game 7-0 than 56-49. And so he definitely wants a defense and a defensive coordinator who can get that done. And so he went out and hired Brett Dewhurst, another guy who doesn't have direct experience as a defensive coordinator, first-time head coach and in Kittley, and defensive coordinator now in Brett Dewhurst. He's bounced around, spent some time at Coastal Carolina last year as an analyst, was previously with Zach Arnett on his staff at Mississippi State, was his right-hand guy. It helped coordinate that defense, wasn't a coordinator, but was very hands-on with the safeties. I believe his official title was safeties coach, but self-described he was really helping out with the game plan and everything that went into the Mississippi State defense. So he's got high-level experience being around a defensive coordinator. And at some point, it's time to make the jump to be the DC. Kittley's given him that chance. So, the idea of new is, a little scary, but at some point it's time. And so Dewhurst takes over. We had him on our show. In terms of the scheme itself, he described it as multiple. We're going to be very flexible, be able to go a lot of different fronts. I don't necessarily have for you right now exactly what their go-to will be. We'll get into spring ball or summer ball, fall ball here in a little bit, and probably get a little bit more what our base will be. But at the moment, the best I got for you is going to be multiple. But they've definitely rebuilt the defense. There was some holes last year with departing guys, whether it be graduation or transfer portal. So they went out. They've made solid additions, especially off the edge. And on the interior as well. CJ Doggett's a guy who's coming over from Ohio, has a chance to be a real force on the interior. The big question is going to be, are they able to generate pressure? That's been an issue past couple of years. If they're able to generate pressure and with this new group, a lot of new guys, I'm intrigued about the prospects of the defense. Verdict's still out. A lot of outside, as I mentioned, outside of the defensive coordinator, there's going to be a lot of new pieces all over the defense. Off the top of my head, returner-wise, starter-wise, less than 3 for sure. And so that's going to create a little intrigue. We'll see how it works out. But I like the additions they've made. Dewhurst, like I said, just because he's new to being a defensive coordinator doesn't necessarily mean it's not going to work out. So we'll see how things kind of shake out here over the next couple weeks in terms of what their base defense will be. But I'm excited to kind of see what they're able to do with a lot of new pieces.
Robbie LaStella with us from the FAU and covering the Owls for Owl's Nest. So, you're in Boca Raton. You got a lot to sell there on its own. Like, how is the recruiting gone early on for Coach Kittley, and then especially via the portal? And also, like, how do you feel like the fan base and the school has gotten behind NIL, rev share? Like, do they feel like they're in a pretty good spot there, just from a support standpoint, in an era where everybody's always trying to get more?
Yeah, that the way you ended that. I mean, I'm sure if you ask Ryan White right now, he'd say, I think we're doing good, but we can always do more. And so that's definitely it. They're not behind, that's for sure. One thing about this athletic department is they're always on the forefront of things. They're trying to stay ahead. When it was collective, they had a collective ready to go that they embraced. And when recently it was time for rev share, they were announcing they were going to do that, be right in and be ready to embrace that. So they've been on the forefront of that, which is good. In the state of Florida, I'm sure you guys deal with this a little bit as well. Whether it's UF or FSU, UCF, a lot of times people in the area necessarily aren't alumni of FAU. So there's a little bit of, ties to other schools. But with the branding, FAU's really tried to embrace the hometown team as of late. So that's been a real start to try to build up the NIL with local fans that are right here in Boca Raton, and I think there's been a real positive reception to that. And in terms of recruiting, I think Zach Kitley he's done a good job. He's coming from a school, Texas Tech, where the resources are endless, and they just put an article about that the other day on CBS Sports. Texas Tech has a lot, so it's a little different than what he was dealing with. But right away, I remember talking to them, his staff. They were ready to go. They're football guys, so obviously they're just excited about the general premise, which I thought was, cool to see it. There was no complaints about money right off the bat, and I think they've been able to use the resources that FAU has, and also kind of make the most out of that. Obviously it's not premier money, but it's not bottom of the conference either. So they've been able to go out and get a package deal like Caden Veltkamp, Easton Messer, while also going out and getting guys from whether it's JUCO or D2. There's been a lot of guys from different places, different ranks of football that they've went out and gotten as well to kind of help fill the roster out a little bit. And I think that's in today's, age of, needing to find ways to balance money and whatnot, getting guys they believe they can develop as well has been an interesting thing. Not to say Tom Herman didn't do that. There was JUCO guys, D2 guys he got as well, but right off the bat, it just feels like Kitley and them have been identifying that at a little bit of a higher rate. So I think Kitley has done a good job with the resources coming in here right away, kind of adjusting how he does things. Like I said, it could have been a bit of a difficult situation coming from a place where resources aren't an issue. And not to say that resources are an issue at FAU, but things are different in Texas Tech. So I think FAU's done a good job as a whole university. Obviously, they're going to keep fundraising and finding ways to get more donors. I think they just got an anonymous the other day of I think $500,000, something like that. So they're doing good, embracing local businesses. New president of the school was a high-level CEO at a business in this area, so he's going to be tapped in, and he supports athletics, which is huge. We didn't know how that whole thing was going to shake out there with the presidential search, but a guy who supports the school, local guy, supports athletics as well. So overall, in a good scenario, and I'm excited to see how they kind of keep building it. NIL is something that changes every day.
No doubt. All right, last thing for you, Robbie, with FAU, I think the win total 4.5 in Vegas by DraftKings right now. You look at the schedule, a lot of toss-up games, I would say, that could go either way. At Maryland will be tough. They do draw Memphis, South Florida, and Tulane, along with East Carolina in conference play, along with the road trip to Navy. So not an easy conference draw. How would you, what would be a success in year one for Kitley, in your opinion?
Well, in an ideal world, they're able to get to 6 wins. I think if FAU was able to get to 6 wins this year, that would give the fan base just a rejuvenation that it hasn't been that way in a couple of years. Since pre-tag or the COVID year, they snuck into a bowl in 2020. But other than that, it's been pretty gloomy. And I think if Kitley's able to come in here, it doesn't have to shock the world. Anything better than 6 wins, then there's really optimism. But 6 wins right away in year one, get the fans back to a bowl game. I think that would be ideal. Now, like you mentioned, though, there is a lot of toss-up games on the schedule. It's not easy. You're going to have UConn sneaking in there late season. Got to close out the season with ECU at home, which if things finish for you guys the way they ended last year, that's not going to be an easy game by any stretch. And then you mentioned Tulane on the road, Navy on the road, USF on the road. Memphis comes at home, but that's still going to be a difficult game, and then Maryland as well. So if they're able to get 6 wins out of those difficult games, there's a lot of optimism, but it's not going to be easy. So that's what I'm intrigued to see kind of right away week one. That's a big test against Maryland. not the best team in the Big Ten. I mean, I think we'll be honest. If you look anywhere, Maryland's not. No one's saying Maryland's going to be the best team in the Big Ten. Nevertheless, they're going to have talent. They're a Big Ten team. If FAU goes in there, keeps it close, maybe somehow sneaks a victory, then intrigues through the roof. If they get mollywopped week one, then there's a little bit of concern. But you know what? There's FAMU, FIU back-to-back after that, and there's a chance to pick up. So I'm saying I'm not making any predictions until I want to see how the defense shapes out here over the next couple weeks. I'm not saying it's a big concern, but it's still I have no idea what to expect just yet. But 6 wins, not out of the cards. If they can get that, a lot of hope, but it's not going to be easy.
He is Robbie LaStella from the Owl's Nest covering FAU. Robbie, we appreciate the time, man. We'll reconnect later in the season, but thanks for the insight.
Absolutely. Best of luck to you guys this season.
Appreciate it, man. Robbie LaStella, great insight on the FAU Owls. We'll get a break in. We'll come back. We'll wrap up the show after this.
Hi, I'm D.R. Alligood.
And I'm his daughter, Jessica.
For 11 years, we have built quality driveways and parking lots for both your residential and commercial needs. We also offer free on-site quotes to have your custom driveways built the way you want.
252-946-1227.
Your roof is a vital part of protecting your home and family from dangerous storms and hurricanes. At Assist Roofing, we install and maintain metal roofing that provides precise protection. Add value to your home while lowering utility costs with a fortified roof to last a lifetime. With 0% financing, grants, and Energy Star Green Roofing tax credit available. Call us to schedule a free consultation so you can weather any storm with confidence.
Make every day electric on the Kawasaki Electro 20 electric balance bike. Maximize the fun with long run times, impressive top speed, and Kawasaki build quality. Easy adjustability and smooth handling make everyday riding more enjoyable. And the standard MTB type tires provide off-pavement capability. The Kawasaki Electro 20 is the electric balance bike that's built to rip. Go to Ron Ayers Motorsports, Memorial Drive north of the airport, Greenville.
Your confidence makes everything look good. You see the world in vivid color, not black and white. Swing through your neighborhood Fantastic Sam's cut in color. And let our experienced stylists take you from everyday to extraordinary.
Fantastic Sam's hair salons are locally owned and operated. Our full-service salons are conveniently located in Goldsboro, Kinston, Greenville, New Bern, Jacksonville, and Calabash. Stop in today at Fantastic Sam's, where the possibilities are endless.
If you are interested in living longer and living stronger, Eastern Physical and Lifestyle Medicine is accepting new patients for a limited time. Finding a caring physician can be a challenge. Dr. Billy Smith is board certified in physical medicine and lifestyle medicine and has been practicing in the area for many years. Call for an appointment now to Eastern Physical and Lifestyle Medicine, 252-364-1108 in Greenville. That number again is 252-364-1108.
Looking for a great deal on a new Nissan?
At Greenville Nissan, we've got a great selection of new Nissans for under $30,000.
The stylish Nissan Sentra, offering top-notch fuel economy. The Nissan Altima, known for its comfort and technology.
The Nissan Kicks, the perfect combination with its compact design and performance. The Nissan Versa, delivering incredible value without compromising on features. And don't forget the Nissan Rogue, an award winner for 10 years in a row. Drive it home just for $22 down and $349 a month.
Visit GreenvilleNissan.com today.
Greenville Nissan, where we drive to serve.
Hi, I'm D.R. Alligood.
And I'm his daughter, Jessica.
For 11 years, we have built quality driveways and parking lots for both your residential and commercial needs. We also offer free on-site quotes to have your custom driveways built the way you want.
252-946. Remember, get the podcast of the show on the IBX Media app or where you get your podcasts.
Got it. You don't have to tell me twice. I remember it exactly.
Stephen Igo and Hoist the Colors on 94.3 The Game.
All right, welcome back in. Final segment here. We got just a few minutes left. Great insight from our guy, Robbie LaStella, covering FAU. Philip Pilkington rejoins us. We got a couple questions in the chat. We'll save those for tomorrow when Bobby Harvard joins us. Robert and Jim asking about ECU's new DC and some expansion topics. So we'll get to that, I promise, tomorrow. We don't have enough time now. Philip, we've done all 12 opponent previews, 11 of those from outside of us two. We did UTSA. I think we did a pretty good job. What did you learn the most about, and is there a game you feel better or worse about after doing all these previews?
I feel better about the Army game. I know I shouldn't, but they got this turnover. They don't know who the starting quarterback's going to be. It's early in the season. I feel good. Who knows what I'll feel come August? It's fresh. We did it yesterday. Yeah. That's what I got.
I think I feel better about the Tulane game. I think we're both
Corey
idiots
didn't
here,
sell it
but
hard enough.
yeah, I looked at their quarterback situation, and none of these guys. The one guy who has played is Caden Simonza from Ball State. He was the MAC Freshman of the Year, but it was in the MAC, and he's a 5'11" quarterback. Not saying he can't win because he's that short. They also added an Illinois and an Iowa transfer who put up pretty middling numbers. I think they're going to be really good defensively. But I think getting them somewhat early in the season where there's probably going to be some offensive uncertainty may not be the worst thing in the world. I mean, we talked about it. Right now, I think the Caden Hauser ECU offensive situation, like if there's one thing you want going into a season, you want the quarterback situation settled. Obviously, C.J. Bailey with State, he's settled. But outside of that, I mean, we don't know what's going to happen with Retzloff. So you're not going to get another settled quarterback situation until late in the season on the schedule, going in at least, Philip. And I think that's a pretty big advantage.
Yeah, that is. Look, man, this is the era of quarterbacks. We know that. So I think that's very important. And, you mentioned the Tulane thing. I mean, could this be the least sure Tulane has felt since that year that they went 2-10 when Michael Pratt was dealing with an injury and probably should have never even been on the field? Obviously, they came to Dowdy that year and really did not play well. So, it's going to be interesting. Obviously, they can get a lot of stuff figured out before we go down there in week 5, 6, whatever it is, week 6, I think. But hey, I definitely think it could be an opportunity. Like I said, it does definitely help to get them early.
All right, there are our opponent previews. We can dive more into things that stood out tomorrow when we have more time. It'll be our final show of the season. We'll all be in studio tomorrow. It'll be Philip, Bobby Harvard, and myself. Free for all Friday. And we'll also be making some bold predictions for the upcoming athletics year. So if you got any bold predictions, drop those or come with those prepared tomorrow for Friday's show. Thanks again to Robbie Listella, also Philip Pilkington. We'll answer your questions tomorrow